A very good afternoon and welcome to the press conference of the Green Cipher Group on democracy and human rights in Russia. And I'm very happy to be here with our guest, Boris Nemtsov. He's the co-chair of the People's Freedom Party in Russia and one of the leaders of the opposition movement Solidarity. Then further to the left from my side, we have Andrei Nekrasov. He's a board member of the opposition movement Solidarity. And then we're here with Heidi Hautala, chair of the Subcommittee for Human Rights of the European Parliament, and last but not least, Werner Schulz, who is member of the EU-Russia delegation. And I give the floor to Werner Schulz.
Meine Damen und Herren, die Entwicklung in Tunesien und Ägypten zeigt sehr anschaulich, dass sich Demokratien länger halten und stabiler sind als autoritäre Staaten. Das sollte der Führung in Russland, der Führung im Kreml zu denken geben. In Russland liegt etliches im Argen. Das kommt in den schonungslosen Analysen von Präsident Medwedew ja vor. Und ich bin davon überzeugt, Russland braucht nicht nur eine Modernisierungspartnerschaft mit der EU, sondern vor allem eine Modernisierungspartnerschaft mit der eigenen Bevölkerung, einen neuen Gesellschaftsvertrag, der die kreativen, kritischen und oppositionellen Kräfte des Landes mit einschließt. Deswegen liegt unser Schwerpunkt in diesem Jahr vor allen Dingen darauf, dass es in Russland freie, korrekte, faire und von den Chancen her gleichberechtigte Wahlen gibt. Ich hatte gestern ein Gespräch mit Barroso und ihn darauf gedrängt, dass er nächste Woche in der Begegnung mit Ministerpräsident Putin das zum Schwerpunkt der Gespräche mitmachen soll. Das heißt, freier, ungehinderter und erleichterter Zugang für neu gegründete Parteien. Das heißt, Zugang zu den Medien, korrekte Wahlen. Und hierin liegt eine große Chance für den politischen Wettbewerb, für die Pluralisierung in der Gesellschaft. Das, was ja an sich Präsident Medwedew eigentlich vor sich hat. Eine dieser hoffnungsvollen und neu gegründeten Parteien vertritt Boris Nemtsov. Ich möchte ihm gern jetzt das Wort geben.
Thank you very much for everybody. Heidi Hautala and Green Fraction invited me to visit European Parliament. I am for the first time here, which is a great honor for me. Well, I represent Russian democratic opposition, one of the co-chairmen of new party, People's Freedom Party. Party was founded in the middle of December last year. We are looking for upcoming parliamentary elections, which will happen in December this year, and we are looking for presidential elections, which will happen next year in spring. Well, why I'm here? First of all, I'm very happy that European deputies are very interested in the problem of human rights and rule of law, not only in the European Union but in Russia, because this is a real problem for everybody. And Russia, like a member of Council of Europe, like a member of OSCE, had an agreement that human rights and freedom of speech and elections have to be under protection, not only of Russian constitution, but of international law. But reality shows that, unfortunately, we have a lot of problems with democracy in my country, and we have a lot of problems with corruption in my country, and a lot of problems with freedom of speech and elections. That's why I strongly support an idea of European deputies to organize long-term monitoring of upcoming elections, because of 4 reasons. There are 4 fraud opportunities for existing power to cancel transparent election in my country. First fraud is do not register opposition like a party. according repressive legal situation, there are a lot more than 40 opportunities to reject opposition from registration as a party. During Putin presidency and his governance, there is no any case when opposition party was registered. No. That's why People's Freedom Party will be ready to send documents to the Minister of Justice at the beginning of April, and it will be absolutely key and sensitive point what's happened with registration. If registration will not happen, it means that there is no election in the country at all, because elections without opposition means absence of election. The next point which needs to be observed is freedom of speech. First of all, censorship on federal TV. Unfortunately, Russian constitutional rights for freedom of speech was cancelled many, many years ago. And now, for example, I'm in the stop list, so-called stop list, where leaders of opposition are involved. That's why observation what's happened with freedom of speech is important, and absence of freedom of speech, absence of debate, means that this is not an election, this is fraud. Third point is an opportunity for existing government to fire party from the list, electoral list. We had a lot of experience when a lot of candidates were fired during the election campaign. That's why observation is necessary. And the last point is manipulation, falsification and fraud during calculations of results. What I mean is, first of all, so-called pre-elections, where electoral pools open few weeks before the day of elections without any public control of what's happening inside. And secondly, calculations after the day of election. That's why I'm saying that if such kind of monitoring will be organized this spring, it will be great. Next point, I want to tell you that you did a great job as far as Magnitsky list is concerned. I know that there are a lot of problems now to implement this list in life, but I think to protect rules of law in my country means to do something. And I can tell you that the most sensitive is sanctions not against the country. I am completely against the sanctions against the country, but sanctions against persons who are responsible for violation of human rights, who are responsible for violation of constitutional rights, who are responsible for death of Magnitsky, who are responsible for example, illegal decision concerning Khodorkovsky, concerning arrest of leaders of opposition not long ago, etc. I think that Russian officials always said that if you implement sanctions against corrupted bureaucrats, you implement sanctions against Russia. This is not true. You must defer Russia and corruption. You must defer Russia and corrupted officials. This is absolutely different point. That's why cancelling sanctions against the state is important, and sanctions against personal, against guys who are responsible for violation of lawyer rights is absolutely effective idea. That's why I believe that an idea of Heidi Hautala and others deputies in the European Parliament is very effective and very fruitful. I know that tomorrow it will be a vote concerning rules of law in Russia. I read this resolution. It seems to me that this is a good resolution. I understand what does mean democracy, compromise, etc., but generally speaking, this is a good resolution. And I believe that finally Russia will be a country not of dictatorship of law, but rule of law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nemtsov. And I give the floor to Mr. Nekrasov.
Yes. Boris basically pointed out the main things we were, as the representative of Russian opposition had to say. I'd just like to mention that you as a media, I think media who is interested in Russian or European Russian affairs, has a special role, slightly different from that of politicians. You know, politicians, and we could even observe it this morning because we met with different groups, and there's no secret that there's a difference in attitude towards Russia, even in this House, and different attitudes towards the way to deal with absence of democracy, because that, I think, is beyond doubt in Russia. But I think the media should be more, because politicians have under a lot of pressures, including economic pressures. You know, Mr. Putin comes in a few days' time to Brussels, and obviously he will be met officially, solemnly, and considered as a partner, as a leader of a normal country, of a country one can do business with. We may be of a different opinion. As far as Mr. Putin is concerned, but I think media hopefully doesn't have the same pressures as politicians do, and can study very, very closely and very analytically, very hands-on, look at issues like, for example, how different Mr. Putin is from Mr. Lukashenko, who also this House here and in Brussels was banned from coming to the EU with a long list of his colleagues. So the criteria for all these things, the criteria for the lists of various politicians and officials from countries like Belarus and Russia have to be very, very analytical, very calm, and devoid of emotions and politicking. And I'm afraid those considerations, which are kind of slightly beyond analysis and logic, and frankly, double standards do take place. And so that is my addition to my colleague Nemtsov's address. Thank you.
Thank you. And I give the floor to Heidi Hautala.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also like to give a warm welcome to our friends from the Russian Democratic Opposition. And Werner Schulz and me want to show with this visit that it's very normal for them to be here with us, just as it is very normal for the representatives of the Democratic Opposition of Belarus to have very close contacts with European institutions, and that we should not shy away from the conclusion that at the moment European politicians avoid meeting our friends from the Democratic Opposition because the Kremlin doesn't accept it. And this is something that we should not follow at all. Indeed, Boris Nemtsov has mentioned that several MEPs are now discussing how we can encourage a kind of a long-term electoral observation towards the Russian 2011 and 2012 elections. This would give a very good opportunity for Barroso and his colleagues to tell Putin next week in Brussels that the EU is going to closely follow how the preconditions of free and fair elections in Russia are going to be put in place. And here obviously we are speaking about freedom of assembly, freedom of association, including the registration of opposition parties such as the party of Mr. Nemtsov and Mr. Nekrasov, and freedom of expression, which means the media freedoms. So this is our aim, and I'm very happy to see that also the Joint Parliamentary Cooperation Committee between the European Parliament and the Duma is hosting an official meeting with Mr. Nemtsov this afternoon at 4:15, chaired by Vice President of the delegation, Mr. Schulz. So.
Pardon me. The floor is open for your questions. Diane, please.
It's Kostis Geropoulos from New Europe newspaper, the European Weekly. My question is, you mentioned the Khodorkovsky case, and last week we saw deals between, Rosneft and BP and ExxonMobil and Shell and Gazprom. Do you think that the Khodorkovsky case still affects business in Russia, or are you seeing a separation between business and politics?
First of all, I'm absolutely sure that Khodorkovsky case is politically motivated. It's trivial and it's very clear for everybody in my country, and it seems to me and abroad too. Secondly, I'm sure that the second case against Khodorkovsky was absolutely out of law. It looks like personal vendetta of Putin against Khodorkovsky. Third, I want to tell you that press secretary of Khamomnitsky court, Tatiana Vasilyeva, who was very close to the judge Danilkin, said that decision about 14 years in the prison was prepared not by judge. This is very serious crime, not only in Europe but in Russia. That's why this is a story not about rule of law, but this is a story about vendetta. Next point, of course, a lot of Putin friends used UCAS. Maybe you remember about Baikal Finance Group, etc., to take this property and to take this cash, because UCAS was the biggest oil company in Russia. I think that an idea to sign an agreement with BP, one of the reasons why this contract was signed, based on the fact to have protection in the West against future investigation how UCAS property became a property of Putin's government. And they think that BP and owners of BP will protect this transaction, so-called transaction, when some owners of UCAS will come to the European court, for example, or some other international court. On the other hand, of course, there are some business reasons why they sign such kind of agreement, but political idea to protect from the West former property of Khodorkovsky is absolutely visible for me.
Inga Czerny from Polish press agency. Sorry, I was late. Did I understand correctly that you are complaining that European Union officials don't meet you often enough, that they are trying to avoid you? They meet, of course, Mr. Putin, Medvedev, and you don't have enough contacts with, I don't know, Mr. Barroso, Madam Ashton, Mr. Buzek. Have you ever met them?
Well, I want to tell you, if we will have in my country independent court, if we will have in my country freedom of speech, if we will have in my country free and transparent elections, we will never come to European Parliament and to talk with Brussels officials, etc. We solve our problem ourselves, because democracy is not democracy in Russia is a Russian problem.
You will never come to complain. We will come as friends and partners, but not to complain.
Yeah,
what do you mean?
It's the first point. Second point, we can tell you that Putin kills, or killed, I don't know what is better, killed democratic state. He killed. He built corrupted mafia state, but he killed democratic state. That's absolutely visible, and everybody knows that. Well, of course, but on the other hand, Russia is a member of Council of Europe. Russia is a member of OSCE, and elections in Russia and freedom of speech in Russia and court system in Russia is not domestic problem. This is very important, because membership in this organization means that this is a problem of Russia plus international organizations and countries. This is not concerned not only about Russia, about every country who are a member of Council of Europe, who are a member of OSCE. For example, if fraud will be in the United States, Russian people will say that, guys, no, you break international law. That's why when somebody in my country said, guys, elections, human rights, put opposition in the prison, this is our problem. This is not true. If Putin is ready to separate himself and our country from this international organization, it will be North Korean experience, it will be true. But now this is not. That's why this is not influence from the West, etc. This is our common problem. Like, for example, problem of freedom of speech in Hungary. This is not a problem of Hungary only. We have absolutely the same. And we want to take part in elections. We are real democratic opposition. We completely disagree with Putin. We believe that to build corrupted country is not in the interest of my country and Russian people. We suggest absolutely different program to build European Russia. That's why we are here, not complain.
But you didn't understand my question. Maybe I didn't express myself correctly. I was asking, are you complaining that you don't have maybe enough contacts with European Union officials, with the leaders of the European Union institutions? You know, they meet regularly on the summits with Russia leaders, but do they meet enough with...
Yeah, I understand, yeah. Well, I know that a lot of people in Europe believe in realpolitik. They forget about values and believe in gas and cash. I know that. I know about Schroederization of Europe. And a lot of people knows in my country about Schroederization of Europe. What is good that not everybody think in such a way. For example, people who are here think in another way. And this is a real hope of real patriots of Russia and patriots of European countries, patriots of all of our countries.
No, I just wanted to say that we want to domesticate the European Parliament first, to meet with the democratic opposition, and then together the European Parliament can call on the High Representative and Barroso and his colleagues also to have dealings with them. Because obviously we all understand how important that there is a living opposition in the country who has the real opportunity to become government in the future, hopefully in the near future. So I'm ashamed to see how European top leaders shy away from contacts while maintaining active relations with the Belarusian opposition.
David Carretta, Radio Radicale. There is a sort of legend around Europe and US, the fact that the President, Medvedev, is quite different from the Prime Minister, Vladimir Putin. I would like to know your opinion on that. And a second question about Mr. Berlusconi, who is a big friend of Putin. What are the reasons of this friendship? Business, personal business? Do you have any clue about?
Medvedev is a president for more than 2 years, but he is not a real president. And this is a tragedy of Russia. This is a tragedy of Medvedev, first of all, and this is a huge problem for Russia, because there is historical tradition that person who are in Kremlin office, he is a boss. There is constitution according which person who is in Kremlin, who is the president, he really has a lot of responsibilities to proceed policy, to be responsible for foreign policy, for defense policy, for domestic policy, etc. But if you look at the situation in my country, Medvedev looks like blogger. He is famous Russian blogger, but he has to be the president. And this is a serious problem. Unfortunately, Putin policy didn't change after Medvedev was selected like the president. He was not elected, he was selected. And I think that such kind of situation is a sad story. Of course, Medvedev is younger. Of course, Medvedev has no KGB experience. Of course, he had an experience in business. He worked in private sector, for example, in Elim Pipe Company. Well, but he has no power to proceed his policy. That's why I didn't mention his name. Well, and your second question was about great friend of Putin, Berlusconi. First of all, I believe that Berlusconi is Putin light. What I'm talking about is his ideas to control TV, I mean Italian TV. His idea to be oligarch and to be prime minister at the same time, and his idea to be for a long time in the office. Putin has absolutely the same problem. He wants to be oligarch and prime minister. He established censorship on TV, 100%. For example, I'm on the stop list, and not only me, but all of our leaders from the Freedom People's Party. Well, and he wants to be in the office forever. And Mubarak example doesn't matter for him. He looks like Jan Mubarak, Russian. Well, but he believes that his future looks better than Mubarak's future. I don't think so. I don't know an example of dictators who will be lucky up to the end. I don't know such kind of examples. As far as business is concerned, of course they had common interest, first of all, in South Stream project and in gas supply. Of course, they have. I think that such kind of rumors are quite realistic. But to investigate it carefully, it needs a special investigation group, not only in Russia, but in Italy too.
We have time to take one more questions, then we have to close down the press conference, please.
From New Europe again. Part of the partnership with the EU is going to be Russia's modernization program, and Russia has made it very clear that it needs modernization and it needs European experience, and the EU has tied it into also the the rule of law in Russia. And I was wondering if you could evaluate the Russia's modernization program, and if you think that it is feasible, and if this is like an opportunity for Russia in a way and the EU to help what Medvedev said, avoid the judicial nihilism that's kind of going on right now. Thanks.
Medvedev used a lot of right words, but nothing happened. For example, he said that we have to build independent court. Few weeks before Danilkin decision, Putin said that Khodorkovsky is criminal, openly on live show on TV, which is strictly illegal to say something before the decision of the court, right? After that decision, you know what's happened, 14 years in the prison. Now we know that it was great pressure to Danilkin, but Medvedev in Davos and everywhere said that we need independent court, we want to build independent court. This is just a rhetoric of blogger, not like the president. It's the first point. Second, I agree completely that Russia needs modernization and innovation, because Russian economy based on just export of oil and gas mainly, and if you look at high-tech export, this is less than 0.1%. Economy based just on commodities and export of expensive oil and gas, which is of course against Russian interest, and it gives unpredictable future. But I am absolutely sure that to build, modernize Russia without modernization of political institutions are completely impossible. That's why this rhetoric looks like blah, blah, blah and no more. Because if you want to modernize Russia, let me come back to constitutional human rights, let me come back to freedom of speech, let me come back to real elections, let me come back to federalism, let me come back to political competition, let me limit an amount of years for president and for governors in one office. 2 terms, relax. 2 terms, relax. They want to be like Mubarak forever. How to modernize country if you are Mubarak? That's why I agree, they are completely against political modernization. What we have as a result, African level of corruption, absence of rule of law, absence of real competition in the economy, and a lot of social problems. We have expensive oil, but we have deficit Russian budget. This is a result of the policy which was started by Mr. Putin.
Okay, we have to wrap up this press conference. The next speaker is already waiting. Thank you very much for coming. Have a nice afternoon.